Ever wonder what happened after Simba roared from Pride Rock? We all know the story. Simba returns, defeats Scar, and takes his rightful place as king. The land heals, the circle of life is restored, and everyone lives happily ever after. Or do they? What if Scar's influence didn't just vanish with his death? What if the shadow he cast was longer and darker than anyone imagined? Today, we're diving deep into the untold chapter of Simba's reign. A story of a haunting that nearly tore the Pride Lands apart a second time. This is the tale of Simba versus the Shadow King. After the climactic battle, the Pride Lands began to recover. The rains returned, the herds came back, and under Simba and Nala's rule, life flourished. But while the land was healing, the new king was not. Simba was plagued by nightmares. Night after night he'd see Scar's cruel grin, hear his mocking laughter echoing in his mind. He'd wake up in a cold sweat, the memory of his father's fall replaying over and over. He tried to shake it off, telling himself it was just the stress of his new responsibilities, the trauma of the past. But the whispers in the dark grew louder. It started subtly, a shadow in the corner of his eye that looked a little too familiar, a gust of wind that seemed to hiss his name. The other lions noticed a change in him. He became withdrawn, irritable, and suspicious. He'd snap at Nala, question the loyalty of the lionesses, and spend hours staring out at the elephant graveyard, as if expecting an army to march out of the mists. Zazu and Timon tried to cheer him up with their usual antics, but Simba's heart was heavy. He was king, but he felt like a prisoner in his own mind. The real trouble began with the hyenas. After Scar's fall, the hyenas were exiled to the Outlands, a barren wasteland. But a new leader emerged from their ranks, one who was smarter, more cunning, and far more patient than Shenzi Banzai and Ed. His name was Feci, and he didn't just want food, he wanted revenge. Feci had been a young observer during Scar's reign and learned from his master's mistakes. He saw Scar's vanity and his reckless promises. Feci knew brute force alone wouldn't win. He needed to break the Pride Lands from the inside out, and he knew just how to do it. Feci began spreading rumors among the animals on the fringes of the Pride Lands. He whispered tales of a Shadow King, a spirit of vengeance that had returned to reclaim its throne. He described a ghost lion with a scar over its eye and a voice of pure malice. These stories, carried by birds and whispered between herds, eventually reached the Pride Lands. At first, the animals dismissed them as silly ghost stories. But then, strange things started to happen. Waterholes would mysteriously dry up overnight. Herds would be spooked into stampedes for no apparent reason. Prey would vanish from hunting grounds that were always plentiful. Fear, a poison Scar had used so effectively, began to seep back into the heart of the kingdom. And it all centered on Simba. The animals started to look at their king with doubt. He was acting strange, and now these dark omens were appearing. Was the land truly healed? Or was it still cursed? Simba, already struggling with his inner demons, started to believe the whispers himself. He saw Scar's phantom everywhere. During royal councils, he'd see Scar's sneering face in the shadows behind the lionesses. On patrols, he'd hear Scar's voice on the wind, taunting him, calling him weak, just like he did all those years ago. Nala, ever the voice of reason, knew something was wrong. She didn't believe in ghosts. She saw the exhaustion and fear in her mate's eyes. She tried to reach him, to remind him of his strength, of the king he was. But Simba was lost in his own personal nightmare. He confided in Rafiki, the wise mandrill who had guided him home. Rafiki listened patiently, then led Simba to the same pool of water where he had once shown him Mufasa's reflection. "Look closer," Simba, Rafiki urged. "What do you see?" Simba saw his own reflection, but his eyes were filled with fear, and for a moment, he saw another face superimposed over his own. "Scar. He is not out there," Rafiki said, tapping Simba's head with his staff. "He's in Era." Scar did not have the strength to rule the Pride Lands, but his memory has the strength to rule you. You defeated the lion, Simba. Now, you must defeat the ghost. This was Simba's real test. It wasn't about physical strength. It was about mental fortitude. He had to accept that the past was a part of him, but it did not have to define him. He had to forgive himself for his father's death and embrace his role not as Mufasa's son or Scar's nephew, but as Simba, king of the Pride Lands. Meanwhile, Feci's plan was reaching its final stage. He had successfully created an atmosphere of terror and distrust. Now, he planned a direct assault. Under the cover of a fierce storm, the same kind of storm that had raged during Simba's fight with Scar, Feci and his hyena clan prepared to attack Pride Rock. They used the chaos of the wind and rain to mask their approach, their goal to strike at the heart of a kingdom already weakened by fear. As the storm broke, Simba was on the peak of Pride Rock, wrestling with his thoughts. He heard the cackling laughter of the hyenas, and for a terrifying second, he thought it was all in his head again. But then Nala was by his side, her growl low and determined. They're real this time. Simba, seeing the very real threat, something inside Simba finally snapped into place. The ghost he was fighting was a memory, but the enemies at his doorstep were flesh and blood. The fear that had paralyzed him transformed into a king's resolve. The battle that followed was fierce, but this was not the divided pride that Scar had ruled. This was a united front. Simba, clear-headed and decisive, led the charge. He was no longer the hesitant prince. He was the confident king. He moved with a purpose he hadn't felt since his first battle for the throne. He saw Feci directing the attack and recognized the same cunning intelligence he'd seen in Scar. He knew this was the source of the haunting. Simba confronted Feci not with rage, but with a cold, clear focus. Your master tried to rule through fear. Simba roared over the storm. He poisoned the land and his own heart, and that poison will not take root here again. The fight was brutal, but Feci, for all his cleverness, lacked Scar's physical power. Simba, fueled by his newfound clarity, was overwhelming. He defeated the hyena leader, not by killing him, but by decisively overpowering him and shattering the myth he had built. He showed the other hyenas that their new leader was just as fallible as their last. With Feci defeated, the hyena clan broke and fled back into the outlands, their morale shattered. As the sun rose the next morning, the storm had passed, and the Pride Lands were quiet. Simba stood on Pride Rock, Nala by his side. He looked out at his kingdom, not with fear, but with wisdom. He understood now that a king's greatest battles are not always against external foes. Sometimes, the most dangerous enemies are the shadows we allow to live inside our own heads. By confronting the memory of Scar, Simba didn't just save his kingdom, he saved himself. He finally accepted his past, all of it, and in doing so, he truly became the king the Pride Lands needed. The Shadow King was defeated, not by tooth and claw, but by courage and self-acceptance. And Simba's reign, once threatened by a ghost, could finally, truly begin. The circle of life moves on, but the lessons of those we've lost, for good or for ill, always remain. It's up to us to decide if they become a haunting or a lesson. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more untold stories.